the best defense about a bad guy with an AI system is a good guy with an AI system. Trying to regulate AI is like trying to nail Jello to the wall. It's just not the kind of phenomenon that can be identified. If you go slow, then somebody else is going to go fast.
Welcome to AI to Z. Hosted by AirSwift's Chief Revenue Officer, Anna Frazzetto, we delve into artificial intelligence, health tech, and more. Tune in and journey with us into the future.
Hi, Russell, and welcome to the podcast. So allow me to introduce you to the audience. So I'd like to do a little bit of research before we get started. And you're a professor of media technology at New York University, my alma mater. So I was very excited about that. And a founding faculty of MIT Media Laboratory. Also, Russell, you make a convincing case about how human intelligence will co-evolve with digital technology to revolutionize how we think and behave. I think that is such a fascinating twist, and it's a connection that you don't typically read about. So, Russell, why don't we get started with, what are some of the dangers that you perceive will come about because of evolutionary intelligence? And also, if you could explain that terminology, because I'm not sure everybody's aware of that terminology.
Okay, when we talk about artificial intelligence and its impact, we are threatened by the notion that it's sort of everybody's overwhelmed and become weary of, oh, not yet another discussion. So let me try to set it up in a fresh way and start with a pleasant summer meeting in 1955 in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. I'm sorry, Dartmouth, New Hampshire, when John McCarthy, a brilliant young MIT graduate just starting his career, invented the term artificial intelligence. And for the next 70 years, these aspiring scientists and mathematicians trying to figure out how they could demonstrate that computers had the capacity to mimic human intelligence. And so everything was based around this notion of a Turing test. That is, you could communicate with a computer, and if you couldn't tell if it was a human or a computer, the computer had achieved AGI, or this concept of human-like artificial general intelligence. And in order to get the funding for this research, what we've forgotten now with all the excitement about Chat GPT is how many times they failed and funding was withdrawn and people changed their focus and careers. So they kept saying, we want this to be a separate agent, like a robot, and make it smart as a human. And as a result, now everybody's afraid that this smart robot is going to be smarter than us and destroy us. And so this fear of an ultimate robots taking over. The movie 2001 with HAL and the Schwarzenegger character in the original Terminator, where the robots try to fight humans. So the fear is that if this invention of ours, not unlike Frankenstein, becomes smarter and more powerful than us, it will overtake us and destroy us. So that's the existential fear that I think generates a lot of the problems, including the recent boardroom brouhaha at OpenAI.
Right. So interesting. First of all, a couple of things. The fact that you referenced that AI has been around for 70 years is also remarkable, because I think often, especially in maybe Gen Z and younger, they think AI is something that just, came into being since, maybe 10 years ago, and doesn't have the long history that it does have. But secondly, you also touch on something that maybe we can expound a little bit on, is what are some of the potential social, cultural, and economic consequences of AI that you think should take into consideration? And if I can add a little component to that, like, what new roles do you think are going to be defined because of these changes with AI?
Okay, so I've set up a story, and because McCarthy was frustrated for 70 years trying to get people to take it seriously, it's never going to happen. Computers are never going to be able to understand language. Language is much too subtle. Only us humans can do that. they set this model of the computer being out there and, in quote, intelligent. And the concept of evolutionary intelligence is that it's not modeled on our intelligence, but it's modeled on compensating for the gaps in our intelligence. And that since we tend to project our human uh, 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 qualities and faults onto everything around us, we project human characteristics onto the computers. Humans evolved with competition against other humans and other animals in a very competitive, scarce environment. And computers didn't evolve that way. So there's no reason that computers are going to say, I want to take over and I want to run everything. And so we just project that onto the computers. And my concept of evolutionary intelligence is to say, rather than competing with us, they can be the next invention. Machines made us stronger. Telecommunications allowed us to communicate over long distances. Now we've got something that can actually make us smarter and compensate for the gaps in our understanding of our environment.
Well, that's a terrific statement that you're making, that it can make us smarter. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. Like, how do you think it's going to make us smarter, other than access to information? But how do you see humans and machines basically working together?
Anna, you've been very patient. You've been asking for some specific examples, and I've been kind of talking about these broad ideas. So let me give you some specific examples. Um, so you got Uncle Louie, and he's been giving you advice to buy stocks all along. And you've got this kind of advisor, and Uncle Louie at Thanksgiving says, "Here's, I got a hot tip. You got to buy this stock." And then the intelligence that is enhanced, perhaps in our glasses, maybe even in our contact lenses, reminds you of the 7 times Uncle Louie has recommended a stock, and that the value of those stocks is now zero, and that you would have lost $100,000 if you took Uncle Louie's advice previously. The other example, of course, is the notion reminding you as you're about to buy a lottery ticket is that you're 400 times more likely to be hit by lightning than to win that particular lottery. So those are little tiny examples. We take for granted that the GPS advisor will give us some good advice on how to drive. That's a very simple, and it has all this data that it's drawn from the environment that we don't have about traffic jams far ahead, et cetera. So basically, think of this when we're making decisions in our lives, an advisory system that draws on knowledge from all around the world and the internet to give us advice, and not to tell us what to do, but say, well, here are 3 options, and here are the odds that you'll achieve what you want on each of those 3 options.
Right. Russ, when you mention GPS, it actually, I'll give an example. Like, before GPS, you would have MapQuest, you'd print out your directions, you'd take it in the car, and you'd kind of follow along. But I felt that I was more knowledgeable of how to get from point A to point B, as opposed to now I rely heavily on the GPS, that even simple trips, I automatically put it in the GPS, and I'm like, I'm not even going to think about it. So on the flip side, you could say that it's actually making me, um, you know, uh, less knowledgeable, because I'm relying so heavily on the GPS. So how do you counter, that argument?
There was a cover story in Atlantic Magazine a while back using Google-like letters to say, "Is Google making us stupid?" Spelling stupid with 2 O's. And this is I think it was Nicholas Carr, as a journalist, and it's a question that we should take seriously, which is the notion that we're not using our muscles, or in this case, our brains, we're going to become more and more dependent and weaker by not exercising our brains. So the notion of an atrophy, if we're not taking responsibility and exercising and using our capacities, we'll just become highly dependent. And I think the key is to understand that we can use these to complement, and memorizing a lot of details like phone numbers. I'm not sure I want to fill my brain with a lot of phone numbers. I don't mind the fact that my smartphone, I can just press a name and get the phone number automatically. Uh, the challenge is, am I going to fill my brain with some other things that are important and we're thinking about? And that's the challenge for us in the new age. I'm not sure that the invention of automobiles necessarily makes us worse off. It's how we mix our own exercise and the use of the automobiles for what they're appropriate for.
Right. Yeah, very, very good point. Absolutely. Now, let me ask the question, because this is also a topic that we keep reading about, the fear that AI is going to take jobs away. And so, do you fear that, talent or access to talent, to either have the knowledge that they need to be able to work in this new AI enriched world, do we have access to that talent, or the fear of jobs just kind of going away? Like, how do we navigate these waters and tell students that are graduating from university, yes, you will have a job?
Well, these are new waters, and we're navigating through some very new and interesting terrain at this point. Previously, when a technology came along, train conductors got new jobs. Blacksmiths got new jobs. Companies that manufactured buggy whips decided to manufacture something else. So what happens is the character of the job process, and any job is a combination of a bunch of different activities. The pattern of those activities is going to change, and the notion that the individual would need to develop new skills, and hopefully they'll be more intellectually challenging and more interesting, because the routine things that we have been relying on people to take care of can be handled by various artificial intelligence processes.
Right. And we've seen this, as you mentioned, so many times in history. I mean, like I come from a technology background. So, COBOL programmers, they had to reskill and learn a new language or learn a new technology. I mean, it's just part of the process that you're constantly growing and learning. Let's talk a little bit about another argument that many make about the dangers of AI, is that at some point it will destroy humanity. And you kind of alluded a little bit to it from some of the previous questions, but what do you believe that this isn't true?
Well, I think what we respond to is the unknown character. If you think about what a computer does, it has the capacity to make predictions about the future based on the information that you put into it. And if you've got three variables, you want to decide whether you need to take an umbrella or not, and the computer calculates the rain and the wind and gives you the advice on that. You sort of understand what the information went into the computer and what came out. And in that case, there may be three or four variables dealing with the weather and the temperature and the rain and the wind. The models that have been invented for the modern large language models, the kinds of models that are the basis of Chat GPT, have a couple of 100 billion parameters. And so even the people that created those models can't fully understand how they work. And they'll note that when they put the same prompt in, they get a different answer from the same system. Because the system is so complicated, it will basically come up with slightly different, usually thematically similar answers. And most exciting of all is some of the properties of these technologies are emergent. They actually do things, make suggestions, and come up with ideas that weren't programmed in. They were invented anew. And this is the notion of that these systems are sentient, that they're human-like. They have what appear to be even feelings. They seem to mimic human feelings. So this is all scary, and I think we need to be cautious about these. But I think if you feel that there's a computer that's generating some kind of advice that you think is contrary to social or human needs, you get a chance to train and refine and prompt in new ways those systems. So what we're back to is the fact that these are powerful tools, and in the hands of bad guys, they're probably going to do some bad things. In the hands of good guys, they're going to do some good things. And I have a one-liner which some people object to, but I'm saying the best defense about a bad guy with an AI system is a good guy with an AI system.
Very, very true. Very true. So then let me ask the question about, can you elaborate on some of the policy recommendations you would make for regulating the use of AI?
Okay, we use some metaphors in the policy decision. I've been commenting in the United States NTIA and the Office of Technology Policy of the White House, each of which solicited opinions from citizens on what would be an appropriate, potentially regulatory response to the increasing power of AI. And they tend to use metaphors like, well, we need guardrails. And I understand that
Mm.
physically guardrails work if you're dealing with traffic, but AI is basically mathematics. And I don't know how you can regulate mathematics. So the other metaphor, which I get criticized for, is trying to regulate AI is like trying to nail Jello to the wall. It's
Ah,
just not the kind of phenomenon that can be identified. So, for example, if you say you're forbidden to use that mathematical formula in the United States, somebody's simply going to use it in Belize or in China. So, given the character of the global network on which these systems depend, I think what you want to do is encourage investment and reward those that come up with ways in which safety protocols can be demonstrated. And then it's up to the users to have use the investments that they've come to. So this notion that if you go slow, it somehow will be a better system. I think if you go slow, then somebody else is going to go fast. So those that are trying to develop safety mechanisms need to go as fast as they can because everybody else is going to be going as fast as they can. I think
right.
the notion of a Bill of Rights, the notion of transparency, the notion of protecting the personal privacy of individual data are all existing traditions of law that are worth going after. If you think about trying to regulate the technology, it's like saying if a robber takes a bus to the bank to rob the bank, you want to arrest the bus. I'm saying, wait a minute. There is a criminal and a criminal act. We've got laws on the books. You don't need to go after regulating the bus.
So, Russ, why don't you share a little bit about your book? Because I'd love to kind of get that out there so that the audience knows what you've been up to.
The book starts out with a scene from the Terminator 2 movie when the Schwarzenegger character lands nude and without arms or clothes or anything and is about to go on his mission. And I make the point that, well, if you look at what James Cameron, the director of that movie, did, he gave you the scene from the point of view of the Schwarzenegger character as he's walking up to this bar to get a motorcycle, some guns, and it's a famous scene from that movie. But what happens as he's walking to the bar is that data about the motorcycle and the clothes and the environment is being registered across his line of sight so that it advises him on how to get the job done. And of course, if you really were doing that, you wouldn't need to have, especially in English, a set of things over the line of sight of the viewer. But wait a minute, think about what smart glasses and ultimately smart contact lenses will do. The notion that when you're looking at the environment around you and you don't have information about what the intentions are, what's going on around you, and the global network system does know these things, wouldn't it be nice if there are various ways in which intelligent systems and wearable computers can advise us as we go through our daily lives? So that little metaphor of taking the role that Cameron brilliantly puts you from the point of view of a robot that's being advised by an intelligent system, ultimately that could be available to human beings.
Well, that's a great way for us to kind of wrap things up, Russ. If there's a power word that you want to leave the audience with, what would it be?
AI as human empowerment.
Ah, beautiful. Love that. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Russ. Really enjoyed our conversation. Some great golden nuggets out there, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks for joining us on the AI to Z podcast with Anna Frazzetto. If you found value in today's episode, consider following for more insightful STEM discussions. We'll be back with another deep dive. Until then.